Robert Louis Stevenson's Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was first published in 1886, and was such success that adaptations were already being performed on stage by 1887. There were at least 4 stage productions and 13 film adaptations before we eventually got to the subject of this video. This is the moment! No. This is not the moment. Give me a moment. I'm sorry about that. 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, directed by Reuben Mamoulian and starring Frederick March. Side note, we'd have to wait another 65 years until we were blessed with Mary Riley. Mary Riley. Mary Riley. Mary Riley. Mary Riley. Mary Riley. That trailer used to give me nightmares, and I thought I had made that movie up until I got older and could look it up on the internet. Anyway, we start the film as Dr. Jekyll with an incredible POV tracking shot. He's making his way to give a lecture about the duality of man and how within everyone there is both good and evil.
Man is not truly one, but truly two. One of him strives for the nobilities of life. This we call his good self. The other seeks an expression of impulses that bind him to some dim animal relation with the earth.
Jekyll believes that the evil inside us is holding back the good, and if we could just separate the two, then we could accomplish an endless amount of good in the world.
How much freer the good in us would be. What heights it might scale.
And it does seem like Jekyll wants to do a lot of good in the world. He's encouraging young girls to walk. He's staying late at the clinic to do surgeries on patients with no money. The guy is saving the cat. We see a little bit of that darker side, some impatience and anger when we're introduced to his fiancée, Muriel Carew, and find out that her father is forcing them into a long engagement. But Jekyll wants to be married now. I wonder why. It's because he wants to do it. That's why. Yeah. It might have something to do with what Ivy Person does for a living. She's a sex worker, right? She's a sex worker? 30s innuendo? She's not just a singer. She's a singer. Who Jekyll rescues one night while walking home. She immediately becomes smitten with the good doctor and does her best to seduce him. He turns her down, but he thinks about it. You might say he thinks about it so much that when he gets home, he buckles down and finally discovers a way to separate his evil, turning himself into Mr. Hyde. He turns himself back into Jekyll almost immediately that first night, but after finding out that Muriel will be going away for a month.
Muriel won't be home for another month. Can't even go to see her.
He quickly turns back into Hyde and sets out to find Ivy. Over the course of that month, Ivy essentially becomes Hyde's prisoner, being endlessly assaulted and abused by the man, until Muriel comes back to town and Jekyll says, "Oh yeah, just kidding, never turning back into Hyde again." And he sends some money to Ivy to apologize? Are you kidding me, man? Ivy finds Jekyll to thank him, and she recognizes him from the night that he saved her, begging him now to save her again from Hyde. But Jekyll can no longer control his transformations and spirals out of control. Hyde, having heard Ivy's plea, kills her, attacks Muriel, and eventually is shot to death by the police. Before I get into my big question about this film, let's talk a little bit about how amazing the technical aspects are. I've already mentioned the POV shot from the opening, but it's not just technically amazing, it works thematically as well. We are Jekyll. Jekyll is all of us. And so later, when we're face to face with Hyde in the mirror, we're looking at the worst parts of ourselves. It's also brilliant to open with that shot because it's so ostentatious, you almost have to establish it from the start, letting us know that we're going to see more bravura filmmaking. It establishes us nicely in the visual language of the film, making us prepared for things like the wipes and the transformations. And the transformations are so cool. The first one is obviously the standout, with Jekyll transforming right in camera. It was done by using lens filters that were the same color as the makeup, and so they would transition the filter color to reveal the makeup. I've read conflicting things about lights versus filters and lenses, but the principle is the same. Allegedly, Mamoulian was so protective of the effect that the truth about how it was done wasn't revealed until after his death. Come on, man, share the knowledge. But all the transformations, each one of them, they're all unique and wonderful and innovative in their own ways. And so, this is the moment. Stop it. My real question about this film is, how awful is Jekyll? Is that really what I'm asking? Is the film really about the duality of man, or is it more about Jekyll Hyde who he really is. Does he ever really have noble intentions when working on his elixir? We know for certain that Hyde knows everything that Jekyll knows. Hyde knows all the science to make the potion. He hears what Ivy has said to Jekyll when she comes to thank him for the money.
I know everything you do and everything you think.
That means we can assume Jekyll knows everything that Hyde is doing, which is why he even knows to send the money to Ivy and why he's so nervous when he sees her again in person. And so Jekyll is actively abusing and assaulting Ivy. Yes, Hyde is the distillation of the evil inside Jekyll, but up until the point that Jekyll sees the cat stalking the bird, we're led to believe that the potion is causing the transformation, and that moment is the first moment Jekyll transforms without it. That means Jekyll is the one actively choosing to torture this woman for his Jekyll's selfish desires. I have not read the novella. I have it, and I'm going to after I finish The Maltese Falcon for an upcoming video. Subscribe. But I know that the love interests aren't in it, and they're an invention of the stage play adapted by Thomas Russell Sullivan, but it makes this film about sex. Hyde is used as a tool for Jekyll to act out all his basest sexual desires, and we're left with this final shot of Jekyll's bubbling potion in the foreground while all these men surround his dead body, seemingly leaving us with the idea that they're all the same. Do I know the point I'm trying to make here? The idea of Jekyll and Hyde, because again, I haven't read the story, can be a metaphor for addiction. You consume this substance that brings out the worst of you, or just normal sexual desire where a restrictive society forces you to keep those feelings at bay. So Hyde is a manifestation of the shame felt about those desires. This film seems to put forth that men are sexual deviants, barely keeping on a mask of civility. I wrote all this out and I'm still working it out here on camera. That's what makes a good movie, right? I'm not sure the film wrestles enough with Jekyll's culpability in all of this. How's that? Anyway, Frederick Marg is incredible, but you already know that. He won an Academy Award for his performance. The physicality of his performance is what sells it. From the slightly uptight and upstanding Jekyll to the animalistic Eddie Munster-like Hyde, he nails it. But my favorite performance in the film has to be Miriam Hopkins as Ivy Person. She goes from this confident, tough, sexually aggressive woman to someone scared for her life, but not just scared, someone who is so psychologically twisted because of Hyde and desperate to get out of her situation. This could be a one-note character, but Hopkins turns Ivy into the most sympathetic character in the whole film. I mean, you could take that performance out of this movie and put it into a contemporary film about a woman in an abusive relationship, and it would win an Academy Award. She's that good. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde came out the same year as Frankenstein and Dracula, and I think it deserves to be held in as high esteem as those two films. Maybe higher, who knows? You have to subscribe to the channel and see where I rank the films of 1931. In the meantime, you can see how I rank 1930. Thanks for watching, and now go watch something old other than me.